Hey friends, it's Tracy. Today I am sharing a Cricut project. I am going to share how I created this Oh Holy Night sign for this beautiful red and black wreath. I'll give you an overview of some of the supplies I use for the wreath, but for the sign, what I used is one of these 10-inch unfinished wood circles. They're in my Amazon store if you're interested, or I do find them at Hobby Lobby. I just gave it 2 coats of white, just a regular acrylic paint. Okay, now to create the size of what I wanted for the sign, what I did is I'm in Design Space. This is Cricut Design Space, and I'm pulling a shape. And so what I'm doing is I am just kind of skewing it, just trying to pull it the size that I need. So I can do it 2 ways. What you see me doing here is just, decreasing the size so that I can see my circle a little better. So what I did is I went up to the top and I put in 10 inches by 10 inches. And then I'm going over here to the images. Now I am a Cricut Access member, and I do highly recommend it because I have access to all of the different designs in Cricut Access. Now there are some free designs, but Cricut Access does have a lot of different designs. So I'm pulling the Nativity, just trying to figure out which Nativity I want to use. And so I decide on this one and pull it into my design space. And so it's a certain size, and so I can resize it by just pulling there on the right corner. I can unlock the lock in the bottom left corner just to unlock it so that I can skew it taller, wider, that kind of thing. And so I kind of figure out, okay, I want it to be that size. So then I want to pull in some text and I type Oh Holy Night. In Design Space, there are a lot of like fonts. You can also use any system fonts that you have installed on your computer. Also, there is in the Cricut Access program, there are certain fonts that we have access to as well. So what I want to do is I typed in Oh Holy Night, and then now I want to curve it. And so I go up to the curve section, and then I'm just kind of playing with that a little bit. So I will continue to play around with the different fonts that are on my individual computer that I've downloaded, as well as what's in Cricut Design Space. I wanted a script font, so I chose the font Just Be Demo. And so I'm just kind of playing around with it a bit, manipulating it the size that I want, the curvature, and I can do that by, just pulling those different bubbles around the block so that I get the size that I want before I decide on it and send everything to my mat to cut out. So then what I do is once I decide, okay, yes, this is exactly how I want it. What I do is I select all of the, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide the circle, and I go over to the right-hand side, and I just hide that circle because I don't want that to cut out. I just use that as a guide. And so then I go down to the bottom, I select all of it. I select all of what I'm doing. I select all, and then I go down and I click attach so that everything stays in its place. And then I'm going to decide on the vinyl that I'm using for this project. So then here is where I will decide if I want to use a matte or I want to use without a matte. I've decided to use just some permanent 651 black vinyl using my matte. And so I can do that with my Cricut Explorer 3 as well. So I just have it here and just cutting it out. Once it all cuts out, very quickly. Then I will, cut it. I usually cut it down smaller, because that just helps me with weeding and just making sure that everything is, cut it out, or, kind of weed it the way that I want it to. And so then I just start in one corner and I just start pulling it just to weed it. There's a lot of different tools that Cricut has out. And when, like this right here for the Isaiah 9:6, I was just having some issues because the letters were so small. And so I had to kind of, manipulate that just a little bit, just to kind of make sure that I got my dots and my I's and all of my letters were in there. And so what I found when weeding vinyl is just to take your time, and just make sure that everything is good. So then now I'm just using my Cricut spatula just to kind of burnish everything. I have a piece of transfer tape, and I will share the transfer tape that I like, that I use the most of, is it listed in my Amazon shop. So you can find the transfer tape that I do like, because it just works really good. And so I take my time and I make sure that all of my letters pick up and all of that kind of stuff. And I use my tools like my spatula and my scraper to kind of, lift everything up so that I can transfer it onto my circle. And so I kind of make sure that I have the position before I smooth everything down, using my spatula or my scraper again, just to make sure that everything is down secure. And sometimes when I'm using, the small fonts, that kind of thing, I end up losing a dot or losing something. And so I just take if I'm using the black, a permanent, I am just taking my black Sharpie marker and just correcting my mistake and move on, and no one doesn't even know. So then now I'm taking my ink pad. This is part of a set that is in my Amazon store, or you can find it anywhere scrapbooking, like ink pads and that kind of thing are sold, where card making and that kind of thing. Anyway, so I just went around the edges just to give it some color. Okay, so then now I'm just making some doodles with my fine Sharpie marker, and then I'll go back and use my ultra fine Sharpie marker just to give it more doodles, because that's what I like to do. It's just kind of my signature, and it's what I like to do, just to kind of give it a border and kind of break it up just a bit. And then I will add some black paint splatters. I do that by just taking a stiff stencil brush and using a stick, and I make sure that my table is covered, and I just go and just give it some splatters. And so this is how this sign turned out. Once I finish it, I give it a coat of my favorite varnish. This is a gloss varnish, and I just give it a coat of that. And to attach the sign to my wreath, what I like to use are these 1-inch cable ties. You can also find those in my Amazon store if you're interested. And so that's how I attach the sign to the wreath. I intertwine it through the mesh in that, and I attach it to the wire. So to make the wreath, what I did is I have a basic, kind of formula that I use with just my 21-inch mesh. I use some black and silver just to make the poofs. I will leave a link to my basic wreath of what I do. Then I like to use 10-inch mesh, and I use some silver 10-inch mesh, as well as some black and white 10-inch mesh. I cut those at 12 inches. And so for my ribbons come usually from Craft Outlet, Walmart. I have some Sam's Club in there, as well as Joann's Fabric and Crafts. And so I have some black. I just pulled in my stash, whatever ribbons I could find that went along with the red and black just turned out great. I also used some tubing from the Dollar Tree. I just made some 6 loop bows. I just twisted it 3 loops on each side and just tied it off with some tubing and included that in the pipe cleaner for the wreath. And this wreath just was, like I said, guys, I use the same process for almost all of my wreaths. I will leave, my playlist down below. You can pick up different tips and tricks by watching different videos. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. I hope that this design space tutorial to create this Oh Holy Night sign for a wreath was helpful or helped someone. Thanks so much for watching. We will talk to y'all very soon. God bless.